back to the Sad Dad Games podcast, where if the games are sad dad, we might talk about it at some point. I'm Shan.
I am Eric.
I'm Tucker.
And I'm Emily.
Today we'll be talking about the seminal entry in gaming history, Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. I don't talk like this. That was a one-time thing. It failed. It flopped. But we're all actually excited.
Very excited.
Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah.
Except for Tucker.
I'm excited to touch base on this game since the first time I played it when I was like 10.
Yeah. Tucker's going to have a lot to contribute on this episode. He's really in it.
Yeah.
Tucker is video game stupid, and we're learning this as we go. There's not very much that he knew before we started doing these conversations. So
I blame it on not having a dad.
Yeah.
No.
My
Can't
dad
blame
didn't play
everything on
video
that.
games. My dad
I can
tried to
blame
stop us
whatever I
from
want on
playing
it.
video games.
Yeah, I'd
I had nobody to
very
rebel
strict on
against.
video games.
Yeah.
Oh no.
He had nobody to rebel against.
Your mom was too sweet. No way you could rebel against her.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was a formative game in all of our lives. I'd say the most significant, except Tucker.
Except for Tucker.
It was forgettable for Tucker. He doesn't even remember having played it. He doesn't know how to play the game. He had to give up because he couldn't play it fast enough to play it through this week. Whereas all of us have like a muscle memory, like a complete mental memory map of where like every time I go to a bottle in the game, I was like, okay, I know, okay, this one has a fairy in it, / bottle. It's like, I know every bottle every fairy. It's like it, and I can't say I've played this more than like 10 or so times, but it's like it's embedded in my muscle memory and it's a part of me. Tucker is game stupid. He doesn't know.
Okay, just Zelda. Throw Fallout 3 my way, and yeah, I got it. I played that game 1 billion times.
Yeah. But Eric is more passionate than all of us. It is his entire identity. He doesn't have very much else going for himself. Yep. So I'm going to let him lead this episode and be the primary host. So Eric, please walk us through the things that you're excited to talk about.
Let me contribute here real fast for those listeners
Tucker's
that are
got
not,
a lot to say. So
they're not on YouTube. Eric currently is wearing a Zelda shirt.
Yeah.
Has the Master Sword behind him, and then has the Deku Tree Lego set behind him. And I don't know if there's any other Zelda stuff in the very back.
There's a Deku Tree Lego, and then I have a custom Lego that is the Hyrule Castle from Ocarina of Time, and then I've got a bunch of. I have every single Zelda amiibo right here, and then I have a 3D Link to the Past map that I made myself, and then I have multiple Zelda action figures right along here. And in preparation for this episode today, I read both of the Zelda mangas. It's manga, right? Did I say that? It's both of the Zelda mangas.
Are you trying to say mango?
And I went through.
Are you saying hentai?
I'm saying mango.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. But I also went through the relevant passages in my Hyrule Historia book.
Of course.
And on my desk, I have my Legend of Zelda 3DS. I'm
so
very
if anybody
excited.
was questioning Eric's authority when it comes to this game.
Yeah, it's a miracle someone agreed to marry me. I don't know how that happened.
To draining his bank account for like knickknacks that don't add wealth to his life.
Specifically Zelda hentai.
I have some of this stuff too, but I don't go like flaunting it the way he does. For him, it's like it's plastered everywhere, right?
Yeah,
this was just like in
my
basement somewhere, and I had to go fetch it just now.
Well, I have a lot of those things. Well, not a lot, but I have some of those things you've listed. But I do have the Master Sword as well. I have the Hylian Shield. They're displayed on my wall. Shan 3D printed me Majora's Mask. And then it's like painted and up on our wall. I have like Zelda's harp. I've cosplayed as Sheik. You said that you have the Wii U, the Zelda Wii U edition, right?
I used to. I don't anymore. I
Why
got
would
rid
you
of it
get
because
rid
I'm
of
an
that?
idiot.
Wii U,
I know,
Wii U.
dumb. Wii U. Yeah,
Stupid ass alert.
yeah.
One of my biggest regrets. So I collect like the Zelda editions of video game consoles. And one of my biggest regrets, I want to say it was when Skyward Sword came out, was I went to go pre-order it and I put down the money, I pre-ordered it. I was so excited. And then after I found out that there was a golden Wii remote for Zelda, and I was so upset. I went right back to GameStop and I was going to request to order it, and they were sold out at that point. And I'm like, why didn't they even tell me that that was an option? I would have thrown my money at them right at the time.
Even like a year after that game came out, I just ordered one for like less than retail. They were not hard to get your hands on for a while there.
They're like $100 now.
Well,
now
I
regret
expensive.
it.
Yeah.
I just I was young. I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't follow up with that. And it's one of my biggest regrets is not having that golden Wii remote to go with my collection of consoles.
The hardest thing for people like us is collecting post-COVID, because everybody got their stimmy checks, and if you were already financially stable, you threw it into eBay and you started collecting Pokemon cards because Jake or Logan Paul was doing it, those dumbasses, and they drove up the aftermarket right at the time that I was already planning to finish my collection.
Sure, Shan, don't lie, you are following the Paul brothers so closely. You're just one of their sheep.
I just want to point out, Shan gave away all of his cards. He sold them all. And years later, he actually contacted the original person that he sold it to. And this person never touched the cards, never integrated it into their collection. And he was able to get his full collection back and then some.
Yeah, he said the quality was too poor to integrate and sell.
And how many years was it? It was a long time that you waited.
About 10 years at least. And eBay had changed its email system a couple times, so I had to go really digging to find that guy's handle, and it was hard to find his email attached to it. It's just I had to jump through some hoops, and I actually tried contacting him 5 years before I got the cards back, but I couldn't find $150 to spend on it. I just wanted to know if I could get it back because it was, he wanted to give it back to me at the same price he paid for it, which was very generous because of inflation. I actually got it back for cheaper, so he's stupid. But it's one of those things that I was sad about every other month ever since I sold them. Those childhood traumas or things. For you it was the remote, for me it was my cards, those things that you did that you cannot forgive yourself for.
And you keep thinking about it randomly all the time.
To fix mine. And those games that you didn't finish, and you're like, well, I have to go back and finish that Super Nintendo game that I didn't finish as a kid. I didn't finish the final boss. Those things get stuck in here and you feel incomplete your entire life. That's the curse of a gamer and a collector.
And now that you're an adult, you can go and you can buy all of those things that you couldn't buy before, and you can beat all of those games that your little stupid child thumbs couldn't beat.
At 10x the price.
At 10 times. Yeah, exactly.
Shan is indulging so hard lately.
It is so expensive to be me.
Yeah. It's okay. There's trickle-down effect for me, so I'm fine with it.
I spent more on my CRT TV a couple weeks ago than I spent on my OLED, 75 inches. That's how dumb I am at this point. But
okay,
I need to know
more
the
expensive
number.
Than your OLED. Yeah, I don't even want to know.
I want to know.
Weird
you keep saying
brag.
that, Shan, and I'm like, how much is it? I need to know.
$12.
Actually, it was priced higher, and that was the fair asking price. But then, when I was looking at it, I saw that there were 2 horizontal lines when it was in HD mode. And I was like, well, I can't unsee that, and it's always going to bother me. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, I really want to sell it. I'll knock off $500. And I was like, well, that's cool. And but I was looking it up on my phone. Turns out this is an aperture grill CRT. And those are just I noticed that the lines were equidistant on the top and on the bottom, those 2 lines. I was like, there's no way that's software. That's got to be hardware or something. I don't know what's going on here, but I looked it up on ChatGPT, and it's oh yeah, it's aperture grill CRT. That's normal. That just keeps the scan lines tight. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell him that. I'm just going to say it bothers me. And he knocked out 500 right there, and it was the same price as my OLED in the end. So
what's the number?
So it was much more reasonably priced. Yeah,
it is
reasonable, sure.
according to the aftermarket fair asking price.
So did you just do this Ocarina of Time playthrough for this podcast on that TV?
The whole thing. It was glorious.
That sounds amazing.
Shan was very excited about his CRTV. We got a lot of texts and a lot of screenshots, and yeah, it looks amazing. I got to play it on. I played it. Well, no, I think it looks great. But I don't have a CRT to play it on. I played it on. I played Ocarina of Time in preparation for this. I played it on my Switch, so it's like HD visuals, really sharp picture. So I don't get any of those fun CRT scan lines. But I do have an NSO N64 controller, so I was able to play it with like an official Nintendo 64 controller. So it still felt like I had that really nice chunky nostalgia when I was playing the game through, because it's just not the same with conventional controls. You got to have those C buttons.
So
yes,
how did you play? Let's go around, because Eric just gave his away. We know that I got the CRT. I have the actual N64. It's not emulated, so I have the cart, and I also had the NSO controller, and I connected it through a Bluetooth dongle to the console, so I was able to play with a crisp new analog stick, which is fantastic.
Yeah, because all the original N64 analog sticks are messed up.
They're very
can't
flaccid.
get a single one these days that are any good, because if you played Mario Party a single time, not only did you wreck your hands, and you probably have like some kind of scar right here,
just a callus.
You have a permanent blister from Mario Party.
Okay, but Shan and I have another brother who is so hard on controllers. All growing up, he would just smash the hell out of it. And he even threw one of Shan's controllers at his house as adults.
In front of me.
Right in front of him. He got upset and he threw a controller. And so, like, a lot of our controllers that we grew up with are trash. And it's his fault.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, I just want to say, like nostalgia, like I've played on emulators. Now I'm all about, like, going back to your roots and playing it on the actual hardware, because nostalgia is more than the game. It's also the feel, and you have to play on the actual controller to like the tech, the texture, the tactile feel, like the mapping of the buttons, like everything has to be there. And then like on a CRT, yes, the scan lines are nice, but you also get like texture blending and natural anti-aliasing, and it smooths out the poor frame rates of an N64 with like the motion clarity. So like for every reason, it's like I haven't felt this nostalgic playing Zelda since I was a kid, and I was just euphoric about it.
We need to have a sleepover. I'm coming over and I'm playing games.
So Shan has his super fancy TRV. It's what? CRT TV. TRV. And he got to play
TRV.
Got a really pure Ocarina of Time experience that I'm pretty jealous of. But it was super fun to replay this game again. I replay this game constantly, all the time. This was probably like the 20th time I've gone all the way through this game. And so I sat down and I blasted through it over like 4 days. I just went right through it. So I'm super stoked to talk about this. I wanted... Oh, go ahead, Shan.
Oh, sorry. No, we didn't finish going around and saying how did...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was just going to insert it the next time I start talking. I was like, we didn't get to it, but I'll just insert it. So I just played on a Switch Lite, and it was an emulator, and it was still great to play it, but I was so frustrated not having the C buttons, because in order to like play the ocarina or do the buttons, I had to use the joystick on the right. And so like you're using that instead of C buttons. So I'm constantly like, I'm fighting a boss or something, and things are chaotic, and I'm running around, and like instead of using my weapon that's on the right C button, I would accidentally hit up, and then Navi would try to give me advice or tell me what tell me about the boss I'm trying to fight, and I'm like, I don't care.
It's like Professor Oak during Twitch plays Pokemon. Ash, you can't do that here.
It's not the time. Not the place.
It's not the time. You can't use that here.
I'm a little busy. Yeah.
That's basically it. Like I kept hitting that instead, and it was just so much harder because that's like down below. But anyways, it was so hard. But I needed something a little bit more portable because I didn't have a lot of time to play this game. So I need something I could kind of move around. I do have our family childhood N64 in my living room.
So that's
but
where it is.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, well, our other sister, we have two sisters between us, but we have a sister who thought she had the N64 and it was in her basement that got flooded. And like, she had it for a long time for her kids, and then I borrowed it back and she forgot. And so when her house flooded and everything got destroyed, she randomly mentioned one. She's like, oh yeah, we lost the N64. And I was like, yeah, you lost the N64. That sucks. So
That's
I have it.
That's our new reality.
Yeah. So yeah, I've just been holding on to it, and I have most of the games, but we had to buy some new games as well. And then our other sister lost some of our cartridges and just a couple years ago. And anyways, it's been frustrating.
Yeah. As far as carts go, of course. Okay, so our brother who has done drugs, I am very convinced that he sold games while in a state of mind that he can't remember doing it, because he sold Earthbound, which is now
that's
very
where that
expensive.
went.
I don't know. That's my guess, but it's $400 and above to replace, and it's like that's my chase cart right now, and it's just like. That's the one I don't want to pay that much for a game yet. CRT, I'll do it. But...
I was going to say, if it was a TV, Shan would be all over it. But
I guess I just saved that much on this TV. I should just go spend that.
You should just do it. Yeah,
Girl
it's gamer math.
Don't
Yeah.
even think about it. Just do it. Just buy it.
Just do it. Buy it. Buy two of them, just so you can have one to look at and one to play.
Yeah.
Buying all the Pokemon games on Game Boy was also very expensive, and they have since like doubled since I bought them a few years ago. So. That's good. Emerald was very hard to get for a good price.
Well, yeah, so I have most of our N64 games. Did have to buy some replacements. And then I have like cases. I think they were bought on eBay, but like cases that the games go in. So it's like a nice little display collection. If you ever want to borrow a game, Shan, borrow a game that you used to
probably own it now. I have bought so many N64 games. I've backfilled my catalog. And then Tucker, how did you play?
So I started out on the Switch Online,
right?
until the Forest Temple, and then I switched to YouTube. And
he still didn't finish.
And I still did not finish.
Yeah. He's that
Tucker's
bad.
all like,
excuse me for having a life.
Oh, I have a young child. Oh, I have a new job. Oh, I don't have time to just play video games whenever.
Sorry, I have parental responsibilities.
Burying the lead. He has a job, hasn't started it yet, so he doesn't have the excuse you think he has. He has no life.
No, I have
and he still
life.
didn't play the game. No, you don't. You can't afford to have a life. You don't have a job. You're break even.
Spending like I have a job. And my wife has a great job.
Look, Wednesday night through Saturday night, I literally had like 10 hours of sleep from that many days, like span over the this last week, and I still finished the game.
See, she was committed, Tucker.
She
was here for the game, and Tucker can't even finish it on a YouTube playthrough.
Nope, I'll just go shove my head in a toilet and flush myself down like the turd I am.
Is it one of the toilets from Silent Hill 2?
It is.
It's just the one that
I just stick my hand in there.
Whoa. You said your head. You need to commit to this.
Well, I gotta get the bird statues out first so I can actually get down the tubes.
I too understand this.
No. We misspoke when we recorded that episode. That was my fault. It's not the bird statue.
Oh yeah, it's a clock hand.
Yeah.
Gotta pull out the clock hand.
Come on, guys.
I thought it was the bird head when I was trying to remember, because the bird head is covered in, like, it's decrowed and stuff, but you get it in the shower.
Wow. Okay. Well, we can get back to the actual game at hand.
We're 20 minutes in and we're about to start. You guys ready?
I think this is a 2-part episode, but we'll see what we get through today.
Idiots.
Yeah, with that attitude it is.
So I wanted to kind of start a little bit we've talked just kind of about our love for games and our love for feeling that nostalgia. And I wanted to just start a little bit by talking about, very briefly, just kind of what made this game so significant in the time that it came out. Ocarina of Time was a trailblazer for 3D gaming, that it was very new and unique at the time that it came out. It came with a lot of new mechanics that were that kind of paved the way for lots of games afterwards. Third person action games still use a lot of the blueprint that was established in Ocarina of Time, specifically like Z targeting and, you know, contextualizing the camera. They all sorts of
and contextualizing the A button.
Context-sensitive buttons was pretty new for Ocarina of Time as well. So it's this hugely influential game, and I remember it came out in '98. I played it for the first time in 2003, and so I played it for a few years after it came out. But I won't give the whole story because it's very long, but it has a lot of emotional significance to me. It's my very favorite game of all time. I've played probably games that would be considered better games since, but Ocarina of Time will always be my favorite game. It's comfort food. It's just kind of like, I just love basically everything about it. I wouldn't change a thing. So I don't know. What do you guys have any thoughts about Ocarina of Time as like a trailblazer in gaming?
So I don't necessarily put this in my top favorites because it's the same thing as Lord of the Rings. And I've been saying this about Lord of the Rings for 10 plus years, is that Lord of the Rings is not on anyone's top favorite movie list because it transcends your top favorites. And that's how I feel about this game.
It's a zeitgeist favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not just a game, it's an experience. It's so much more than just a basic list. We all know it's perfect. So why even bother like putting, using a slot on your top 5? You know what I mean? So that's how I've always felt about Lord of the Rings. We all know it's perfect. You don't need to put it in your top favorites. The same thing with Ocarina of Time. It's perfect. And even though it's kind of a dated game, even going back and replaying it now as an adult, I'm like, oh, some of it is kind of dated, but it's still perfect. And it'd be great if they remaster it, but I'm fine with the way it is. And I can still play it and still love it. And the mechanics are beautiful and the graphics are a little sharp and pointy.
Yeah.
They're charming. They're of their time. Just don't look at the Great Fairy too closely or she'll poke you in the eyes.
Okay, so yeah,
Those bazingas.
it is triangle hell looking at the Great Fairies.
Yes.
They are just
polygons. Ah.
Yeah, and that's where I think the
Poke an eye
CRTV
out.
is the best investment for playing any of these N64 games.
He was looking tight on my team.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
Voluptuous.
Oh.
Well, I'm now uncomfortable.
making
But
everyone.
as a-
Yeah.
Always
You
left me
remember as a
satisfied
kid-
and smiling.
You remember as a kid playing this game and just always hoping your parents would walk by as you were in
Yes.
the Great Fairy Fountain?
Well, and they
We
do
all
this
were
thing
there.
too, where they lean forward and they put their hands out and then they go, oh, and I'm like, oh, looking around the corners, like it's not gross and weird. I promise. It's like,
not
please don't come in the room right
I'm
now.
not getting off on this, even though I have nothing else. We don't have smartphones yet. I don't have access to nudie mags. This is the best I've got. So yes, technically it was. It
No
was something
wonder I
special
played
to a young
Ocarina of
boy.
Time so much.
Yeah.
Listen, it made me uncomfortable every time. Giant
Yeah.
floating, big-nosed ladies. Not really my jam, but maybe for
As if
someone.
you've got nothing else.
But it was
Yeah.
always, I 100% agree with that. It was always one of those things where it's like, before you go into a Great Fairy Fountain, you like look over your shoulders and like, all right, my parents aren't around. Because it's not inappropriate, but it definitely would raise an eyebrow. Like,
Oh, my parents definitely would have turned it. Well, my dad would have. My mom.
She would have kind of
questionable.
turned away, I think. I've been letting my niece play zombie games and she talks about it in front of my mom and and I even mentioned to her, I'm like, I played zombie games at her age. And she's like, oh. And she just kind of ignores it. But you couldn't play video games on
It's
Sunday.
the best way to parent.
Yeah. Sunday was playing games on Sunday is where we really got in trouble. So you had to be really careful
But that was
about
still
that.
a dad rule.
That was a dad rule. We were in a very religious household and you have to keep Sunday sacred. But we took a piece of tape
Not
and
no
we
mas.
we took a piece of tape and we like Sharpied over it and we put it over the red light of the N64 so you couldn't tell the light was on. And then my dad, who's so smart, has some master's degree, is so good at things and can build and flip houses and all these things. He couldn't figure out how to turn off the TV. We did have like a broken button, but like I remember he came downstairs, saw us playing probably Zelda on the N64, lost his mind, and was like trying to turn off the TV and couldn't get the button. And so he just unplugged the TV. And as soon as he walked away, we plugged it back in. We're like, well, the N64 wasn't.
N64.
He didn't unplug the N64, and he doesn't know how that works. So we just kept playing as soon as he walked away and turned down the volume a little bit more.
And you remember CRTs of the time, it's like you'd have to like hit power and then like immediately spam the volume button to turn
because it was like set at 50 or whatever. Yeah, that was the default volume reset every time you turned it off.
You can't have your parents hearing you're playing late at night. You're supposed to be in bed.
Yeah.
If you're a basement child, then you can get away with these things. I was a basement child.
Children.
I had special privileges. So I would stay up and I'd watch The Simpsons and Conan O'Brien, and I'd play video games because my parents couldn't hear if I could spam that volume button fast enough.
You lived on the couch downstairs, which is the couch I currently have.
That's where I got the behavior when I went to college.
I was going to say, lived on the couch when we were roommates too. I was a huge bummer to share a room with, apparently.
He lived on Depressamy Street. What was I supposed to do?
I was a real bummer for a long time.
I lived with
there.
Eric in the same room too, and we lived on Depressamy Street together.
It was great. Depressamy Street's good if you've got a friend. Yeah. Let's be sad together.
But also, I thought the couch was comfy. So
yeah,
it is.
Well, so back to Ocarina of Time. Basically, how I wanted to do this is because I think that we all love Ocarina of Time. We love talking about the things that we love. But this time playing through, I was really, I've played this story a million times. I'm very familiar with the story, and so I wanted to try to glean extra details from the story that I might not have noticed before, and so. Just similar to how we did with like our previous series, The Last of Us and stuff like that, I was paying a lot of attention. I was taking notes when something struck me. And so I kind of want to go through just point by point and hit the main bullet points of Link's journey. And we can talk about just some things that I thought was interesting and maybe you think are interesting and have a good conversation that way. So Link's journey starts off in Kokiri Forest, which I think is such an awesome, fun intro area. It's a good place to get to grips with everything. There's a little village and it does something that I think is very, very clever. I'm going to use this section as an excuse to talk about something that is maybe a slightly unpopular gaming opinion. Everybody in the world hates your helper fairy in this game. Her name is Navi, and everyone dogs on Navi for talking to... No, let me finish, Shan. Everyone dogs on Navi.
I just realized it means navigator.
Yeah, it's short for navigator. She's your navigator.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
So here everyone dogs on Navi. Everyone hates Navi. She talks too much. She interrupts your gameplay. She's always telling you to do this and always. I love Navi. People need to get off her back. She's amazing.
Listen, Eric, you're wrong.
Hey,
that's
no,
my Navi impersonation.
Hey, listen.
She is my favorite companion character.
Hey, listen, you're wrong. Okay. If it were always optional, then it would be fine. But when she interrupts you and you already know what's going to happen, it's like,
hey, listen, you should do this.
Hey, listen, Eric.
My only counter argument to that is to say, look at Fi. Fi is 1,000 times worse.
That.
So my argument in favor of Navi is a big thing, and it's called Z-targeting. So Nintendo likes to do this thing where they physically, especially in the early 3D era, they physically contextualize new concepts to the player. So things like having a 3D camera, moving around in a 3D space are new concepts when Ocarina of Time came out and kind of this era of gaming. And so to help players come to grips with those things, they don't just give you a system that works on a gameplay level, they contextualize it with something physical in the game world. They give you a helper fairy and her name is Navi. And when something can be targeted, Navi physically flies over to that thing and then you can target that thing and interact with it with the context sensitive button prompt. And they go so far as to contextualize those things with something physical. They do the same thing in Super Mario 64. When the camera is not just a camera, it's a little Lakitu with a camera on a fishing pole. It's a physical thing in the world. If you look in the mirror, you can see him behind you. And so I think it's smart game design to have something physical for the player to interact with and relate to. And to Shan's argument, Navi does interrupt you sometimes. And for some people that's too much. But if you put down a game for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, and then you come back to it, because this was kind of a longer adventure than people were used to playing at the time, they might not play it all through at once. They put it down for a few weeks or a month. They come back to it and they're like, what was I doing again? Oh, let me just push up on the C button and Navi will remind me. So maybe Navi was a little too persistent when you're trying to just explore. That did happen. I'll give you guys that. But I think it was a very smart game decision to help give the players a physical connection to the world, to their quest, and to their environment around them. And they did all of that with Navi. Also, she's adorable. So I love Navi. She's my favorite.
Hey, listen.
People hate on her too much.
Hey, listen. She, though, again, the interrupting is what's bad. But what is worse is clearly the owl. Whatever.
Oh,
Oh my
clearly.
gosh. The owl can screw that guy. I'm fine.
Okay,
with
but
that.
do you
I
know
don't
who
like
the
that.
owl
Annoying
is?
for almost the same
Yeah.
reason. It's dialogue that you can't skip.
Yeah,
Or
but Navi's dialogue is one line. It pops up and you push the button and it's gone.
not
Yeah,
always, but
the
most of
owl, you have to go through all this text. No one's
then he's
reading
like-
that. And then
Well,
he's
and
like,
then
do you
it's
want to
always
listen
like-
to that again? And the default is yes. And then you have to
spam the B button. We
Do you
all
want to
Yeah.
not don't listen to it again? And you're like, I don't know how to answer. What do I push?
So I just learned that the owl is King Raru.
Not King, the sage Raru.
Sage. Well, isn't he the?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Well, it's different people. The King
For some
Raru
reason, I always thought he was the king.
King Raru from Tears of the Kingdom is a different person than the light sage Raru from Ocarina
Oh,
of
is that
Time.
why I'm mixing it up?
Yep.
Wait, which game was that?
It's probably a reincarnation, like they did.
Probably. Yeah, so the light
They've
sage
used the name a
Raru in
couple
Ocarina
times.
of Time is a different person from the King of Hyrule and Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay, that's where I'm getting it mixed up. But yeah, I didn't know he's supposed to be the owl too.
Yep.
I-
It's his physical
I just-
manifestation outside of the sacred realm.
I didn't know that. The whole
they
time I
tell
thought it
you
was just
that
an
in the
annoying
game?
owl.
They tell you
Probably
that
in all that
the-
text that you skip through.
Yeah, there's no way of reading
it's
it.
it's heavily hinted at. I think it was maybe in like the instruction manual or something, or like one of the producers in an interview or something. But it is like that is a thing, or maybe in Hyrule Historia.
Yeah, you have
I'm not
it.
going to pull it out right now, but I like that is a real thing.
Explains
That
its eyebrows.
it's the light sage Raru. So anyways, Kokiri Forest. Love Kokiri Forest. I love Navi. I love the way that the game starts. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, there we go. Picture of the light sage and of Raru the owl. But I like the way that this journey starts. So you go to are summoned to the Great Deku Tree to heal. The Great Deku Tree is like, I'm sick. Come heal me. You go into the Great Deku Tree. You do the first dungeon, a really nice introductory dungeon, and you fight off all the baddies. And the Great Deku Tree gives you the first Kokiri Emerald. He tells you about a brief history of some like the Civil War in Hyrule that just happened beforehand. And then he says, go talk to Princess Zelda. She's got, something for you to do. And so you start off on your quest and
And then he dies.
Oh, yes. And the Great Deku Tree dies. And we find out later that what happened is that Ganondorf is going around and so actually we'll talk about going to see Zelda first. You go to see Princess Zelda and you have to, you sneak into the courtyard, you go to see Princess Zelda, and she tells you the history of Hyrule, how the world was formed. The goddesses Din, Nehru, and Farore, they have different roles and they form the earth, and then they leave the world, and when they leave the world, they leave behind the sacred Triforce, which is within the sacred realm, and everybody wants the Triforce. And so that's like the big thing that kind of kickstarts the journey, and then she tells you there's a... Yeah, go ahead, Shan.
No, it's the what's it called? The MacGuffin.
It's the MacGuffin. It's the you got to get this item. Yeah.
What's a MacGuffin?
It's the you got to get this. It's a plot driver. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, think of like the Infinity Stones or whatever. Like, it's the thing in all of the Marvel movies that everybody is trying to get, and all of the action is centered around it.
Or like
Okay,
in a
I've
Mario
never heard
game,
of
Princess
MacGuffin.
Peach is the MacGuffin. You got to go save Princess Peach. In Zelda games, it's usually the Triforce or the emeralds or whatever you're going to collect. Those are the MacGuffins. And so Zelda tells you about, like, there's this man called Ganondorf meeting with the king, and she says, this dude is evil. I had a vision. He's going to try to get the spiritual stones, open the sacred realm, and take the Triforce. So I need you to go on this quest for me and go get the sacred stone or the spiritual stones first. And Link's like, great, I've already got one, so that's super lucky. And so this is when you find out that Ganondorf, as you go to get the different spiritual stones, you go to the Death Mountain to get the spiritual stone from the Gorons, you go to Zora's Domain to get the spiritual stone from the Zoras, and you find out that Ganondorf has already visited these places and has tried to extort the stones out of the inhabitants there. So he goes to the forest and he makes the Deku Tree sick. He poisons him and he says, give me the stone or I'll poison you. The Deku Tree doesn't. And he goes to the Goron village and seals off their source of food. He says, I'm going to starve all of you out. Give me the stone. And then Ganondorf, he goes to Zora's Domain and he infects, similar to the Deku Tree, their spirit that they, Lord Jabu Jabu, a spirit fish guy that the Zoras worship. And so Ganondorf is going around trying to collect these stones by using power, and then Link goes around and he tries and he is much more successful. So I think that this is a fun parallel between Link and Ganondorf, is because as you're collecting the stones, Link goes around to all of these places and helps these people with their problems that Ganondorf has caused. And so very different methods of very different things. And I was really struck this time with why Ganondorf doesn't intervene. You don't see Ganondorf at all. He doesn't come and try to take the stones from you once you get them. He just kind of lets Link do his thing, which I thought was interesting.
Well, at least later in the game, at the very end, he does say, well, I knew if I just let you run around, then Princess Zelda would come out of hiding. So he knew that you were running around doing things. He just kind of let it happen. Now, at the beginning, before Zelda takes off, what's the excuse there? Maybe he just wasn't concerned about this little kid. But yeah, he does know what you're up to.
I don't think he knows who you are before that. It's only when you're on his radar. What I was struck with this time while playing was that when I was playing Kokiri Forest or Kokiri area, I was like, oh, this is Peter Pan and the Shire. And because the kids never grow up, and it's this like isolated little area, but then it also has allusions to the Shire being all green and foresty. And then when I made the Lord of the Rings connection, I was like, oh, this whole game is inspired by Lord of the Rings. And you have Sauron, who went around and corrupted everything to try to, in his pursuit of the ring, as Ganondorf had done trying to find the Triforce.
Yeah, there's definitely parallels that I hadn't really put together, but I was really focused this playthrough on Ganondorf as a villain. I think that his tactic and style is really interesting in this game compared to other games where he's just like a beast, or where he's, even different incarnations of Ganondorf. I think that this one's a lot more plotting and scheming, because once Link does collect all of the spiritual stones, he goes to the Temple of Time to open the Gate of Time and to access the Sacred Realm to get the Triforce, which is exactly what him and Zelda had planned on doing. And Ganondorf just lets him. Totally could have stopped him, but he realized, he's like, this kid has all the puzzle pieces. I'm just going to let him open it. And then when he does, Link is like, yes, I did it. But then as soon as he pulls out the Master Sword, he's sealed away for 7 years. And then we see this really awesome little clip of Ganondorf that was like, I fooled you. I'm going to go to the Sacred Realm. You opened it for me. Thanks a bunch, dummy. And then he goes in and he tries to steal the Triforce, but instead is only able to get the Triforce of Power, not the full thing. And so I liked that kind of scheming side of Ganondorf, of him employing, his tactics didn't work to get the spiritual stones, but then he noticed that Link was getting the spiritual stones. And so he's like, maybe if I just let this kid cook, he'll open it for me. And then I can just swoop in and get everything that I want. And so I liked that side of Ganondorf this time. And we get a lot more evidence of that too later on in the game as well.
Yeah, he's a lot more simplistic and boring in later iterations and entries into Zelda. Whereas in this, it's subtle, and they probably did it just to write a story that is consistent in the little narrative of being able to run around openly for hours in an open world. On the other hand, it adds character and depth to who Ganon is, and it made him feel like a true antagonist and foil to Link. And so, I don't know, I like that. This is the game that like establishes his cunning brilliance that we have carried into all other games, even though those games, if I played them in isolation, I wouldn't feel the same way about him.
So we see this the moment that we see Ganondorf through the window at the castle. He's bowing down to the king, and he is being manipulative.
Sneaky.
He is so sneaky. And Zelda, even just being a little girl, she has this like intuition. She's like, I don't feel right about this guy. And, you know, but you can see him kind of sucking up to the king and bowing to him and showing respect. But he has something else going on. So I really, like you were saying, he's letting Link run around. He's controlling people like puppets. He's like, oh, I'll just let him handle it, and then I'll swoop in and steal the Triforce. He's sneaky. And so yeah, I like how even though we don't see Ganondorf a lot in this game, we still get a lot of his character, and he's a good villain.
You know, also what makes him special is that it's like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. It's that you don't see him, but you see what he's done. And so you're cooking in your head like, this guy, I don't want to encounter him because I've seen him destroy Zora's domain and Kokiri Forest, and like I've seen he's awful. That's amazing.
The marketplace.
That's what makes the last half of the game so awesome for me. Like, so after you pull the Master Sword and you're sealed away, Link wakes up 7 years later, and you know the sage, Rauru the Sage in the Sacred Realm, kind of brings him up to speed. Like, hey, Ganondorf won. He's taken over. Hyrule is in a pretty bad state, but you're old enough now to be the master, or to be the hero. Here's the Master Sword. Like, go awaken some sages and let's get him. And then you come out of the Temple of Time, and Castletown, which used to be this really lively place, lots of people running around there, like even the ambient noise in the background, you can always hear like people chattering, and like there's lots of shops and there's lots of things to do. There's, you know, you go there at nighttime, even there's a few people around. There's like a bunch of dogs around. It's a very, very lively, it's like the heart of Hyrule. And then you come out of the Temple of Time after Ganon is taken over, and it's completely leveled. Everything is destroyed, and there's nothing but redeads, which are basically like Zelda zombies. There's nothing but redeads there. You
know, the redeads are definitely that spinning dancing couple. And just like the people that were actually, they were the ones that were redeaded.
I kind of hope so. They always bugged me. It's like, get a room.
They spin
making everybody uncomfortable. Yeah. But I love that aspect of Ganondorf. And I think something cool too is that this is the first time we see Ganondorf in his human form, because this is only the 5th Zelda game. There's 4 Zelda games before this one. This is the 5th Zelda game to be made, which is crazy because we're up to, I think, 19 now. And so this is the first time we see him as a human. And so he's Ganondorf
between Ganon and Ganondorf? Okay.
Yeah. And so I think that it's cool that they took a new spin on this character, tried to humanize him a little bit. You get to see him scheming and doing his tactics. And like Shan was saying, when you're in this world as adult Link, you get to see all of these crazy things that he's done to take over Hyrule. A lot of I think all of us have played Breath of the Wild, and maybe Tucker can finally contribute something. I'm just giving you a hard time, Tucker. But we've all played Breath of the Wild.
Why don't you kiss my butt? How's that for contributing?
You did it. Thank you, man. I really appreciated that. It's always nice to have you contribute. But I think Breath of the Wild does a good job of kind of creating this post-apocalypse Hyrule. Where it's like, yeah, this is after a huge catastrophe. The world is sort of ruined. And I kind of forget that we got that all, like a version of that already in Ocarina of Time. That there's still pockets of humanity, but like Hyrule is kind of screwed when you're adult Link. Ganondorf has taken over and things are in a bad way. So it was cool to see that.
Can you think of any other game before Zelda, or like any other franchise around this time that could like create atmosphere like a Zelda game could? Because you have like A Link to the Past, the Dark World. It's like that game just nailed atmosphere.
Yeah.
And this, you become an adult, nailed it. Majora's Mask, tonally phenomenal. Nothing touches like, and like I just can't think of anything else that like nails that dark tone from that era that just like I became enamored of. Sorry, Tucker, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the little bit I got through of this game. There's quite a few parallels, I think, to actually Tears of the Kingdom Ganondorf, to Ocarina of Time Ganondorf. Just the human form, the scheming, parallels so well. So for me, it was really cool to see these games that are almost 40 years apart.
About 25.
25? 25?
Ish.
Really, only 25?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah, I guess it was
97.
98.
Not that old.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
Well, it's
That's
always
terrible math.
literally the same Ganon, right? Everyone else gets reincarnated. He's the same person, right?
Yeah,
It
but I
depends.
just seeing the same villain traits transcend that time gap where it was so well done at the very beginning. There's not a whole lot of change that needs to happen to still make him a compelling villain.
Yeah, there's even in Tears of a Kingdom, there's like one scene where you see Ganondorf and he's like kneeling down and swearing fealty to the King of Hyrule, and then immediately like the next but he's plotting to betray him. And it's like very, very similar to what Emily was talking about earlier, where he does the same thing in Ocarina of Time. So it's like I love me some good old scheming Ganondorf, and yeah, you get a little bit of that at Tears of the Kingdom. You get a lot of that in Ocarina of Time, and I'm here for it.
This is directly the Ganondorf that's also in Twilight Princess. From my understanding, is when you go back into time, which we'll talk about. When you go back into time, then it's you and Zelda as children warn the kingdom and the king about what's going to happen, and so they lock up Ganondorf. And when you play Twilight Princess, they show kind of a flashback where they're trying to lock him up and punish him for the crimes that he hadn't actually committed yet. And he kills...
Minority Report style.
Yeah, exactly. It's Minority Report.
Definitely dubious, but yeah.
He kills one of the, I think it's sages that are trying to lock him up. He kills one of them, and then they try to banish him to the Twilight Realm. So that was like his spirit prison. Which is in the Gerudo Valley where he's from. So there's a lot going on there, but that directly is like the same Ganondorf.
Yes, that's correct. It's the same one. So yeah, Ganondorf in Twilight Princess and The Wind Waker is the very same Ganondorf, but on different timelines. Around the same time period even. Twilight Princess and Wind Waker happen at about the same distance from Ocarina of Time, just on different timelines. So
that's right. I'm not crazy.
And I don't know
familiar
about
with Wind
other
Waker.
versions of Ganondorf. I think that they're probably the same. Like Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf, I think is the same
Sword
one.
was like the pre.
Yeah, and Skyward Sword is the
You've
very,
got
very
Demise
first one
and
on the
you've got
timeline.
Ganondorf, right? Are they separate entities?
So Demise. So you get Demise at the end of Skyward Sword, and then he curses
creates a
Link and
curse.
Zelda's bloodline,
Yeah.
and with like his hatred, and his hatred is reincarnated into Ganondorf. So he's like progenitor Ganondorf, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, audience, we know Skyward Sword is incredibly hard to want to play, but it has like the best lore out of
It's so
every
good.
Zelda game.
I still
It's got one
haven't
of my
beat it.
favorite stories,
Yeah.
but it is I call it a very friction filled game where there's lots of things that I love about it, but there's also lots of points where I feel like I'm kind of rubbing up against certain aspects of the gameplay, and most of them are Fi. I can't friggin' stand Fi.
To me, it's the mechanics. Nothing kills a game faster for me than the mechanics.
Yep.
It's terrible.
But maybe we'll do a
backtrack.
Skyward Sword video another day. That would be a fun.
Yes.
That would be a fun one. The pros and cons of Skyward Sword in the comments. Would you like to see that? Maybe we'll
All
do that.
cons and then
Yeah.
pro lore.
Yeah. And dungeon design. The dungeon design is pretty solid.
Oh
in Skyward
yeah,
Sword.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But you
Okay.
have to do this while you're playing. And that's-
Yeah, it's a video for another day. That's I could go. I'll go down a rabbit hole.
Almost
with
an
that one.
hour in, and we haven't transitioned to adult yet.
Yeah, well, no, we did a little bit, just a
like
tiny
a-
bit,
like a
just
tiny-
barely.
yeah.
We just are
So-
barely an adult. We're in Castletown
Pick it up,
as an
Eric.
adult.
Come
Yeah.
on.
That's right. We keep
So-
distracting him. He's trying to keep us on track.
I'm doing my
This is
best,
very-
you guys. If only Tucker
this-
would contribute more. Yeah.
This is very clearly symbolic. Link, he heads to the Temple of Time and he grabs the Master Sword and he transforms to adult, right? And when you sheath
Very
that
symbolic of
sword,
puberty.
it's a puberty thing, and it really is, right? Like that's what this is
I
all
was
about.
gonna like,
It's
I
a
was
coming
gonna
of
like
age
have a
story.
conversation about how cool of a moment that is, and you just ruined it for me forever. After Link becomes an adult, he's finally old enough to go on his adventure proper. He's Rauru sends him to go find the seven sages, and first you go to the forest temple. And there is some you can, before everybody jumps on me on the internet and gets mad, there is some flexibility in the order of dungeons that you do it. But let's be real. It's forest, fire, water, and then shadow and spirit. Like that's the narratively satisfying way to do it. So you can do it in a different order. But
yeah, I thought you had to do it in that order.
No, you can do fire first if you want to. And if you're feeling really ambitious, I think you can even do the light temple before the shadow temple. So
that's crazy.
If you're feeling really adventurous. But
and this is what made me angry this playthrough is like I finished the Shadow Temple and I realized that the medallion came last and the song in the order on your
your inventory screen.
Yeah. It's the last song and it's like, and then the Spirit Temple is the penultimate and it's like, why'd you do it backwards? That's not the order that you play the game. They know that, right?
Driving everyone with OCD absolutely crazy.
Because
it's in the wrong spot.
You're not going to go get the lens of truth at the bottom of the well and then skip the Shadow Temple and go straight to the Spirit Temple. Like that, you're not going to do that.
It's just silly.
It's silly shit.
Silly and wrong. So Link goes to the Forest Temple, defeats the evil there. I had some cool thoughts about the Forest Temple this time because I think that all of the temples that you visit as adult Link, there's 5 of them. And I think that they're all themed very interestingly. And I was always kind of like, I like the vibe and the general theme of the Forest Temple, but I was never really thought about why it's there. What is that building? Like, what is that structure? What did it used to be? Do you guys I have thoughts on that because I watched some videos and read some things that I think are cool. But do you guys have any thoughts about the Forest Temple specifically and what that structure might have been?
No.
Nothing? Great. Well, I'll go into it. So I think there's a lot of interesting, it's like right in the middle of the Lost Woods. And so you're looking at it and you're thinking like, maybe this is a temple where, people used to go and they worship like forest spirits or something like that. And so
the Great Deku Tree.
The Great Deku Tree, like maybe it's tied to that, but then you go inside the temple and there's some areas where you can see up in the sky and there's battlements up on the wall, which is like indicative of a fortress, so that they can have archers poised up there to shoot but guard themselves. And so it's like that's guarding a fortress. And then but you go inside deeper into the temple and there's lots of like coziness sort of where there's like paintings hanging up and there's things. So it's a very interesting structure that isn't super clear what it is. And so I read some stuff online and I watched a video from this really cool YouTube channel called Zeltic. So check them out. He's awesome. Does a lot of cool lore stuff. But the point that he came to in his video was that it was likely when you get to the area where you fight Phantom Ganon at the end of the temple, there's patterns on the ground that are almost identical to the patterns in the Temple of Time by the Master Sword, which is directly linked to the Sacred Realm. And so that this was likely a place that used to connect directly to the Sacred Realm, which was something that would need to have a fortress around it and built and protected. And so I like that there was that kind of concept of what, as the devs are making the game, they're like, what is this structure for? Everything in this game feels like, what is this for? What could it be? And it's not always stated, but I thought that was a cool little nugget of lore that like this place links to the Sacred Realm maybe. And, that's why they built this around there, is to guard that and keep it safe. So that was cool.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe. Also, Forest Temple has one of the coolest bosses, I think. He's not super crazy. It's not like a crazy fight, but thematically, Phantom Ganon rules. Thoughts on Phantom Ganon?
Very clever bosses throughout this whole game, especially for like, it's like the progenitor of 3D games, and they really nailed how to be creative with how you fight bosses. They created the Dead Man's Volley, as far as I know, but they did that in Link to the Past, and then they had to interpret it to this game.
What's the Dead Man's Volley?
It's Zelda tennis.
Yeah.
When you're hitting
the
the thing back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
Phantom Ganon, fantastic. I just found out, I've been watching a lot of video essays on Zelda, specifically like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, over the last couple months. So one of the things I randomly found out is that the sound effect of him kind of floating around in the air is it's when you're using the fishing rod. It's like that little and they took that soundbite and they just sped it up, and that they reused it for Ganon swishing around in the air.
You see a lot of
fact.
stuff like that in N64 era games when they're trying to like keep their file size low. They reuse sound effects by speeding up, slowing down,
Mario.
pitching up, pitching down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a whole section of fun facts that will towards the end of the episode, if we've got time, we'll get to that. But I have more of those. So
Should do
What
a
was
series,
this?
Fun Facts with Eric.
yeah.
What was the sound effect from like the original Mario game that's like it's the same thing but sped up and twice the pitch?
So in Mario 64, the boos, their laughter is Bowser's laugh, just sped up and pitched higher.
No. Well, I was thinking it was like the star or something, or or I don't know. There's a sound effect that's the same, but it's faster and
Oh, I don't know.
higher.
Probably, like I said, in older games, they reuse sound effects all the time to keep their file sizes down.
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
So, anyways, Forest Temple's done. We meet with the sage of the forest, who is Saria. Your friend is a child. You get the
Saria, who the hell are you? It's Saria.
What did I say? What did I say? Saria? Sarai? I actually don't.
Saria. Actually, Saria. That's actually how I usually say it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Saria.
What did I say?
You said sorry,
Saria?
yeah?
I have
Saria.
never said Saria once in my life.
Let's roll back the clip.
I have always called her Saria. I don't know why my brain said Saria right now.
When I go back and edit, I'm going to send you that clip
Okay.
and prove it to you.
You know
Yeah.
what? Actually,
I believe you. I'm sure that I said it. I've always called her Saria. I don't know why I said Saria.
yes, it's Saria. But yes, you said Saria. I accidentally said Saria, and just because I was indignant, I didn't. It slipped out. But yes, Saria is the name.
Anyways,
But that gets me to another point I want to make real quick. How do you pronounce Link's horse's name? Because I've heard it so many ways. Well, I've heard it two ways, but I'm curious because we don't talk about these things when we're in the 90s and we're kids. So like everybody has like micro like just with between their friends they pronounce it a certain way. It's like Pokemon. It's like some of us pronounce Pokemon names differently because we didn't have a source of truth.
And the
I know
cartoons
what.
of them talking, saying their own names wasn't enough.
Well,
Well-
we didn't have that for all of them.
Hmm.
Like
So-
Arceus
so-
and Arceus. It's like
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I always did
guess
Arceus.
I should. It probably exists now, but I always said Arceus.
So I feel like for Link's horse's name, I know what I'm going to say, and I feel like I know what you're going to say, Shan. And I don't. We'll see with everybody else. But I always called her Epona.
Yeah.
Epona.
You called her Epona? Yeah, that's what I thought.
So
you might say.
I did Eponia.
Eponia.
Were
Yeah.
you kidding
Ooh,
me?
she's
Yeah.
Eponia.
Yeah.
She's Italian.
It's Italian. Everybody knows Hyrule was originally
gets her little hoof up
settled
there.
by Italian immigrants.
God. And
I am desperate to draw a picture of Epona now with her hoof like this, and then a little like one of those lines above the A. Eponia.
it's like
You should.
no, it's like Ryan on Oscar's Return, like when he puts the lemonade.
For
Lemonade.
Mexican lemonade. It does a little, and yeah, you're just like,
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's
Eponia.
crazy.
And
It's
I
just
shit
all
you
the way
not,
wrong.
it's so much more fun to say.
You're not wrong. It is more fun to say.
You're just adding so many more extra letters in there.
Um,
What were you saying, Shan?
No, when I was a kid, I know this is wrong, but for years I called the second game Mahora's Mask.
That's where I got it from. I was about to lead. I was going to lead with that as well. Like, I
Yeah.
also said Mahora's Mask.
I think it was because I was like taking. I don't know if it was when I was in middle school and taking Spanish or something like that.
That's what it was.
It was Shan's fault, not me.
I
Mahora.
was like, you put a J right there in the middle. I'm gonna say Mahora.
Obviously,
Yeah.
how the American audience will pronounce it.
Shan going
Link's
around to
part
his
Jewish
Hispanic
friend.
friends saying,
Yeah.
it's Mahora.
It's Mahora.
So
you
funny.
idiot! You come to my house. You say its name right.
You did have, yeah, you, were they Hispanic, your twin friends?
No, they were Spanish. They not
Okay.
Hispanic.
Okay, yeah, but like they come over and you're like, it's Mahora,
Well,
correcting them on how to say
they
it.
did. I don't know.
Who knows where words come from?
I have wondered.
Yeah.
I was like, I swear I used to call it Mahora's Mask, but I self-corrected. It's Majora.
Yeah, because at some point we stopped being stupid.
And then the internet came around and corrected us.
Yeah. I don't feel like you needed the internet for that one. It's very clearly not Mahora.
You don't know. It kind of.
I do
like
though.
A Spanish
Like
mask. It looked like because like I think part of it in my head as a kid was like I knew about the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, and so it's like all the masks, all of the themes of the dead, and I think that was sort of like something I connected in my head. I was like, well, this is a Spanish game.
Obviously. That's so funny.
And then they were like. Then they were clicking around their maracas, and they were
because people click maracas.
Yep. Like at some point, it's like this is a Spanish game, and I know it. This is Mexican.
Link jumps out and he goes "Ole," and
and well, there's that dance. Though that's definitely not Spanish, but
no, that's you're only making your case weaker. Yeah. But
then they put a hat on the ground, and then he does a Mexican hat dance around it, and it's like, okay, this is clearly a Mexican game.
Shan's just going, yeah. We'll just let Shan talk for however long he wants.
A Mexican game made in Japan for us Americans, because Zelda is not it's not popular in Japan at all.
Well, but you also
have a Western game.
You also have the Italian Japanese plumber from from New York.
So anything's possible.
And then you have Italian horses.
Yeah, you got Italian horses.
You know,
really, all Japanese games are about Italy.
That's true. The guy who runs the ranch, what's his name? Malin's dad?
Talon.
He looks Italian, and I think he's
Italian. His name is Italian.
Yeah, and I think he's literally supposed to be like Easter egg, like he's supposed to look like the Mario Brothers.
Yeah, him and Ingo are the Mario Brothers.
There you, yeah.
Confirmed. Hyrule is set in Ithily. Yeah.
They migrated.
Yeah.
So,
do you ever notice that like caricatures of other ethnicities or whatever in video games from the 90s, they go a little too far.
Yeah.
They take the tropes and they turn it to an 11. It's like, we need you to know that we mean Italian.
You could have got the point across. You could have got the point across with a 9, and you just went 11. And
well, that was acceptable back then.
Oh, it was totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that now. You have to have ambiguous characters.
You can, but you have to like self-deprecate as you do it. So like Sunny, It's Always Sunny does. So that like tongue in cheek.
Yeah. All right, so we're through the first temple, and so Link goes to the next to go awaken the Sage of Fire. He goes to the Fire Temple, which is also a very cool location, and you fight one of my favorite bosses at the end of this one, and you meet one of my favorite characters. I don't know if you guys knew this about me. I love Gorons. They're my favorite Zelda race. I think that they're adorable with their big silly faces, and they're eating rocks, and I freaking love Gorons. They're great.
Their
favorite Zelda race by a mile. I love them.
Well, this is the first appearance of Gorons in any of the Zelda games.
Yes.
I googled it the other day because I was like, wait, I was playing Echoes of Wisdom. I'm like, oh, there's Gorons in this game. None of the top-down games have Gorons, and so I googled it. And Ocarina of the Time. What?
Some of them do.
Not the older ones.
Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks do. Also, so do the Oracle games. The Oracle games for Game Boy Color have Gorons.
But I think I did look that up. I think that came out the year after, or like 1 or 2 years.
Oh yeah, no,
after.
they're after Zelda, or they're after Ocarina of Time. But sorry, I see what you're saying now. This is their first appearance, but they have been in top-down games before.
Yeah. Well, I haven't played Phantom Hourglass, but yeah, there you go. Anyways, the point is it's the very first appearance. Fun fact. Go on.
So Eric, what was it that made them your favorite? Was it
is it because they rock?
Nah. Was it when Darunia called you his brother and you felt a sort of a love that you hadn't felt yet in your life?
Or you know what? That might be it. Yeah.
You're like, yes, I have somebody who cares about me.
That's it. He's my brother.
But also, it's got to be his dancing, which just like gave them a personality that like lights up the scene. He can cut a rug.
I love Darunia. He is not just so Gorons are my favorite, and Darunia is my favorite Goron. I freaking love that guy. I love exactly like you said. You play him Soraya's song when you're a kid, and he just starts just friggin' dancing his brains out.
Jubilant.
Like he's this very serious stoic person. And because it was like an N64 era game, when he's done dancing, there's no transition back to his like normal standing pose. He's just like absolutely freaking out. And then the camera cuts and then he's just completely still and stone faced. And he's like, thanks, I liked that song. And it's like, it just cracks me up. So Gorons, they're the best. And I'll never change my mind. They're my favorite forever.
They have a lot of colorful personality. And I think that's it. It's pure love being, it's just charm, you know.
They're just fun and dumb and simple, and I love them. Like they're just great.
They have love for everybody. They're lazy.
There's no hate in a Goron's heart. They're just good folk.
Yeah. Although some of them are SOBs, like that little one that you have to hit with a bomb. It's like I nailed them on my first try this time by pure luck. I wasn't even aiming or timing it. I just like threw a bomb down. I was like, I'm just gonna keep blindly laying this bomb down until I get him. Got him on my first try. It was glorious. But I remember hating that little SOB as a kid.
Yeah, it's to time the bombs and stuff. So yeah, and for context, when you come back to Goron City as an adult, you go to Goron City, which used to be live, and you go there and it's empty except for one Goron that's rolling around, and you have to stop him with a bomb, and then he sends you off into the fire temple to go rescue the other Gorons, which you find out that Ganondorf has like, as an example to all the other races, he has rounded up the Gorons and like all of them, and he's rounded them up for execution, which is like, I want to be careful with my phrasing to not like get the SEO mad at us, but he's like gathering a whole race. It's a genocide. He's gathering a whole race, and he's not going to just kill them. He's going to feed them to a dragon. And then when you see the dragon is quite a bit smaller than the Gorons. The dragon's not going to swallow these things whole. It's going to tear them to pieces and eat them in chunks. And it's like, and it says it in the game specifically that it's like he's doing this as an example to the other races, which is like straight up Hitler stuff. He's like, he's gone full like crazy genocide, man. He's just like, that's the level of guy we're dealing with.
Is that the darkest thing he does? Because I'm pretty sure
it's pretty messed up. Like he does some other bad stuff, but like the Goron City and like what he's doing to the Gorons this time around I was really like, because as a kid you kind of like, oh no, he's gonna feed the Gorons to the dragons. I gotta save him. But as an adult, you're like, what is wrong with this guy? Like he just cleaned out a whole village of an entire race, and he's gonna tear them to shreds and feed them to a dragon. That's effed up, man. Like that's what is he doing?
One by one. Not even like throw them all into the volcano at one time. It's just, we're gonna slowly feed them.
Yeah.
Was it Veruga, or what's the dragon's name?
Volvagia.
You know, while that thing's flying around and then the rocks start coming down, I'm pretty sure that's Volvagia pooping the chunks,
out the Gorons.
Oh.
And
the leftover Goron
spots. They turn into solid rock by the time they've been digested. So he's already got visual.
I think this is Shan headcanon that he's.
It's implied. It's the same as like Raru as the owl. It's like it's in between the lines. You just have to.
You just got to look for it. If you really look for the poop, you can find it.
The truth is out there.
Yeah, the truth is out there. So I found this part of the game a very effective way to just like Ganondorf is the bad guy, and he is a bad guy.
Heightens the stakes.
Yeah, it heightens the stakes. Exactly, that's what I'm looking for. So, but then you defeat Volvagia, you free all of the Gorons, and I love how you go through the dungeon and you free the Gorons, and that's like part of going through the dungeon is freeing the Gorons, and they're all so stupid and happy, and they pop up and they go, oh, and then they run away with their little arms out like this, and I love it so much. They're the best. Just want to pinch their little cheeks. I want a Goron plushie and I snuggle with it every night. I freaking love Gorons. They're the best. And so when you're done saving the Gorons, then you go off to the water temple, the infamous water temple, everyone's least favorite temple. Everyone hates the water temple. So guys, thoughts on the water temple? How was the water temple this time around? Tucker?
Still butts. Yeah, Tucker. Nothing to contribute.
You know, the water temple brings up a very interesting point. I have a lot of thoughts on the water temple.
Let's hear it. Yeah, give it to us. Yeah.
All right.
Pass.
Yeah.
Okay. Classically useless.
Really? Not Smash?
Pass or smash for the water temple.
He just really likes
I
those
smashed
water
it.
spikes.
Okay, so the water temple, there's okay, I can play this game so many times and there is always one thing that I miss.
Every
And
time.
if you miss the critical path, it adds 20 to 30 minutes to the gameplay. Because you have to do the loop 2 or 3 times to see what you missed. And so it's like that's the problem with this temple is if you don't have it down, then the time you're stuck there grows exponentially.
It's hard to quickly navigate between rooms. Like you can look at your map and be like, oh, I'm missing something in this room, and then you're like, oh, what the water level is here. I need to go raise it all the way up so that I can lower it back down, and then I can go all like through this long gauntlet of rooms to get to that. It's very segmented, and so it's hard to work your way around. I've said that over time, the water temple has become less of a grievance to me. But even like this last time through, like I said, I probably played through this game like 20 times. But even this last time through, I got to the like right before the boss door, and I realized I was like, I'm missing a small key, and I had to go back through the whole time. Like there's always one. There's always one small key that I'm like, dang it, I missed it. I got to go back. So the water temple is always a little aggravating.
What was your small key you missed?
This time it was the one where you have to go to like I think the very bottom floor, and then you walk into the room that's with water, and then there's like spikes, and there's a hook shotable like thing above the spikes. That was the one that I missed this time because I found it like as I like right at the beginning of the temple, and then I was like, oh, I don't have a hook shot. I don't have the long shot. I'll come back here later. And then I did everything else, and I completely forgot about that. I go to the boss door, and then I was like, I forgot to keep. Oh, dang it! I gotta go back to that one room where I forgot about with the long shot. Like that was my key.
And you're
this
trying
time.
to remember like which rooms did I finish and which ones did I not.
Yeah.
So you're circling back into the same rooms, and you're like, no, this one's completely finished. And then you've got like that area.
Especially if you don't have the compass.
Yeah,
It's
and,
impossible without the compass. Like
there's that room
just
with
have it
like
memorized.
the boulders that are going back and forth, and you kind of have to like circle around, and then you have to know that there's a waterfall where the boulder is coming down from. So it's like in the wall.
Easy one to forget.
That's an easy one to forget.
Yeah.
Super easy. And that
And
one
then
is
you have
super
to go
frustrating.
all the way back around.
But then you have to have another small key when you drop down. So I think like I caught that pretty fast, but then I dropped down into the area, and then I think you had to have another key to get through another door. And I'm like, I don't know where that key is. So I had to circle back and then find that area again.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing this game, like I'm the youngest of 5 kids, right? And
the dumbest.
I'm the dumbest of 5 kids?
A lot of superlatives in this one.
I'm one of the smartest and most graceful and talented and amazing of the 5. Shan is also just a sibling of the 5. So Shan and I are the youngest 2 of 5 kids. I'm the youngest. He's 2 years older than me. We have another brother, we have a tomboy sister, and another sister who randomly sometimes played games when we were kids. But anyways, the point is I grew up, and my childhood was like, and when I look back, my childhood was Pokemon and Zelda. And all I did was just sit there and play Pokemon on my little Game Boy Pocket, with, black and white pocket. And then I would watch all my siblings play Ocarina of Time. So I didn't play it as a kid, but I have watched this game on loop, and all of them go through and beat it over and over and over again nonstop. And I loved it. So when I finally got a little bit older and they stopped playing games as much, there's finally a point where I was like, wait, I'm old enough to play a video game and no one's stopping me because no one's playing it and taking dibs over it. So I think middle school, maybe high school, I finally played Ocarina of Time. And I think I've beat it twice at this point. No, as of this morning, 3 times. So when I finally went to go play it, I knew this game inside and out. I do not remember struggling with the water temple. I was like, oh, everyone complains about this. It's not that bad, because I had it memorized at this point. Now that it's been, 15 or so years going through, I got stuck. I spent a couple hours on the water temple. It was so frustrating because it was, you just forget a lot of things. Even though I knew the overall, I knew a lot of things about the game, and I'd go to somewhere, a certain place in the game, and I'd be like, oh yeah, wait, I just forgot. I actually have to go do this before I can do this part. And then I get to the other part, I'm like, oh wait, no, I was supposed to do this. It's a whole chain of events and all these puzzles. Like, anyways, this time was very frustrating for sure, playing the water temple.
Yeah. Okay, so I've played this enough that I always remember the hardest keys to remember, which is behind the rolling stone boulder, and then the one that's beneath the central pillar.
Yeah,
And
that's an easy one to miss.
And I missed an easy one, which is on the bottom floor. There's a block you have to push, and I'm going up and down, up and down, up and down, and I'm like, I can't find this key I'm missing, and like I kept, like, when I'm on the bottom floor doing my rounds, I'm going in and out of all these rooms. It's like, what did I miss? And like I had a blind spot for this thing. I could have pushed, like, probably the first time I was down there on that floor, and I just missed it. It was the dumbest one to miss.
That's how the water temple gets you. It's just, you miss the little things. You're really focused on the hard things, and then you just miss the little things. So
it's like the forest temple. I get in a loop there too. If you don't find the first 3 keys, it's hard to remember you need 3 keys before you can proceed through the first act of the temple. And that's really frustrating because they're all kind of hidden, and you end up going through like that well sequence over and over again. It's like, I don't know where that key is.
yeah, so the temples in Ocarina of Time, they strike a balance of, like, some of them are really, really good. Like, not all of them are quite to the best of the series, but you can tell that there's like a little bit of growing pains as they're learning how to design dungeons in 3D. So there are some little things like the very beginning of the forest temple, and then like the raising of the water up and down and kind of getting stuck in a loop in the water temple. There's little things like that, but still on the whole, really solid level designs, really solid temple designs that I love to come back to, even if the water temple does, even after all these years, trip me up every once in a while. And
what I love about these temples is that you are often revisiting areas within the temple, but it's like, okay, well, you have to work your way around. You have to get the weapon for that specific temple, and then you can come back to these areas, and suddenly, the temple expands because you're able to use those tools. So I really love how you keep coming back to different areas, and it's not. The Spirit Temple is a little bit more linear, but a lot of these other ones are all over the place.
No, the Shadow Temple is very linear. The rest of them are pretty much crazy. Oh yeah, and the Spirit Temple is
Spirit Temple is a little bit. So random poll, I guess. So most boring boss battle at the end of any dungeon. Do we all agree that that's the water temple? Morpha is super boring.
Let's see.
Even my 10-year-old self that played this game still remembers that.
Yeah. It's just like you just hookshot it's just a giant water blob. It's for me the least exciting boss. I like the mini boss. Fighting Shadow Link is much more exciting than fighting the final boss at the end of the thing.
Shadow Link, is that one of the best AI enemies ever written? He's nearly impossible, and he will kill you.
And I loved, and so the first time I played this game when I was 13, I remember distinctly, like, when you're fighting Shadow Link, when you thrust forward, he like jumps and he stands on top of your sword, and then he flips you the bird and he slices at you and then jumps away, and you're like, what just happened? Can he do that?
And then he whips out his dong and he flashes you before he starts fighting you again. He's always
Shan's always got to take it somewhere weird. Yeah.
No, that's what he does.
All about the
You
phalanx.
didn't play the game. You didn't play it on a CRT. I could see in the original resolution.
Okay. That's what it
see
was.
What they were going for.
Yeah.
That little, like, they use like 3 polygons and it just kind of like sticks out. And you're like, but it's hard to see because he's monochromatic and he just like whips it out and he.
That's why.
Sure.
That's why they wear tunics. Is easier access to the dong. They can just whip it out of the tunic a lot faster. No zippers to deal with.
Yeah.
You need to stop doing this, Shan.
No, he does a pinwheel and then he shoves it back in and then he goes back to fighting you and you're like, what did he just do? Like, I hate this guy.
I think Shan's goal for this episode is to just take all of my favorite parts of Ocarina of Time and ruin them for me.
It's real weird with it.
Also, I had no idea that Shadow Link starts invincible. I didn't know he starts semi-translucent and he becomes more opaque.
Yeah, every
I
time
never
you hit him
noticed.
once, he becomes, until he's fully like corporeal, and then you get the last hit in, and then he's done. But
You
I
can
love
just,
that
like,
battle.
do nothing
I
for 60
hate it.
seconds until that happens.
Yeah, I always, as a kid, I loved this arena because I loved how you would like walk into a door, but then all of a sudden you're in this like big open area with like a floating door, and that blew my mind as a kid. I was like, how are they doing that? How could I walk through this door? And like, yeah, it's a really great effects. And I love as you're walking past, you have your reflection in the water, and then when you cross that little island in the tree, then all of a sudden your reflection is gone. And you look down and you're like, where's my reflection? And then you look back and you're like, oh, he's over there ready to murder me.
Which again
And
is
so-
like Peter Pan, where you have his shadow that kind of detaches, and I don't know. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah. So moral of the story, Shadow Link is should have been the final boss. Morpha is a drip.
He's the hardest one.
Totally.
He pissed me off. Like, thank goodness for I was on the Switch so I could do save states. I kept dying over and over and over again trying to beat him. He is the hardest boss of the whole game because he just mirrors everything that you do.
You got hit him with the Megaton Hammer.
I tried, it
yeah,
didn't work.
That was my strategy, but I couldn't get it this time. And
Yeah.
I learned that you could do the jump attack, and that's
Mhm.
effective almost every time. You
Yeah.
get the you parry and then you do the jump, and that gets him almost every time.
Deku Nuts don't always work, but if you hit him just right, it will stun him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had to
a
keep
lot of,
using
like,
save state
little
and dying.
cheats and hacks to take
Little
him down.
strats, the pro strats.
Which brings me to an excellent point about this game, which is one of my very favorite things about it, is that for for the pros, for the true fans of this game, the more you play it, you realize that there are Easter egg ways to beat half the game and half the bosses. Like, if you use a different item that you can take, it's like Resident Evil 4 when you like play against what's that guy, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can throw an egg at him and it like he dies in like 2 hits.
Salazar in Resident
yeah.
Evil 4. Yeah. You throw an egg at him, which is friggin' screw that guy. I hate that guy.
Who's wasting
But,
an egg on him to find this out?
Me?
Okay.
I hate that guy.
But like,
You found that
that's
out without Googling
well, no, I
it?
didn't find it out. No,
Yeah.
I Googled it, but
It's also in the terminal montage thing, like in that.
Yeah.
he throws an egg and they just.
Yeah, but like, but this game, it's like there are Easter eggs to so many things, and it just like makes you feel special when you find it. It's like chopping the chickens and having them fly at you. I love the Easter.
You're
eggs.
chopping
It
the
makes this-
chickens?
Yeah, every
This
single
time-
time. Of course.
This time it happened on accident. I got Epona, and then I went to go ride over the fence, and I jumped over a chicken. One hit, all the chickens swarmed
Well,
me.
Epona's hitbox, if you trample over something, it's like it does it like over and over again. And so you didn't just hit it once, you trampled it with your horse. Obviously the chicken was upset, Shan.
Yeah, but like, here I am making my glorious escape as I'm being blocked from exiting, and the chicken just like pauses everything, and it goes into that close up, and he like
Frenzy.
pops back. And it's just like I'm getting swarmed, and I make this glorious jump over the fence as
The
all
sea of
cuckoos.
chickens behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
That's
picturesque.
insanity. Dang cuckoos.
So
But, that being said, the final boss in the Water Temple, even though he sucks, on a CRT, those translucent effects, like, it looks phenomenal. Like,
Humble brag.
It's just like there are so many like effects, especially the translucency, that you forget how effective and how like high quality it felt when you played on the proper hardware.
yeah, when everything's smoothed and sharpened, it doesn't look quite as impressive.
That's going to do it for us for the first part of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time. We're cutting it here randomly because we didn't realize that we were going to go long, and we're just kind of recording this at the end and smashing it right into the middle. And so you're going to have to come back next week to get the rest of our ranting and raving about the game that everybody already knows that everybody loves. So please join us then. Bye.
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 Outro. Bleepy doof, bleepity bloopity blow.